Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining me for this week's edition of the SMIE Consulting Midweek Roundup. It's Wednesday, March 25th, 2026, and today we're going to be answering questions we've been hearing from international educators over the last 7 days. And as we do each week on the Roundup, we take our questions that we answer here on the Roundup from our newsletter that comes out on Mondays each week. And that newsletter is available in two formats, and I'll be dropping the links to both the LinkedIn and email version in the chat so that you can follow along in case you haven't already subscribed to the newsletter. And either way is fine. You can go to smieconsulting.org/subscribe, and you'll be able to get the latest subscribe to get the latest version either via email Monday morning at about 9 p.m. or via LinkedIn notifications on your social media channel that you hopefully get your international ed news from. So those are the two ways that you can get the newsletter content. And as we do each week, that content includes topics from the arena of social media, online, digital, AI, webinars that are coming up, all various sorts of tools that you can use, blog content that can help inform opinions related to international education and social media. It also includes U.S. Central, kind of looking at the key news and events of the week in the United States in international education circles. So you'll have that content. Then a Solutions Central, where we try and present some ideas that folks are implementing in the wider world, able to talk about ways that they are adapting what they are doing in international education to address some of the challenges we face in our field. And goodness knows the last year and a bit we have faced more than our fair share. So what we do each week is then look at where the common themes are. We have a global roundup section as well, and we usually try and do at least one of our three questions that we answer here on Wednesdays on one of these global topics of interest. And why do we do that? And we do that because for several reasons. One of which is oftentimes in our work in international ed in the U.S., we are very focused on the task at hand and what we're caring for our students on our campus, devising recruitment strategies that make sense, that are aligned with where the data shows we should be going, and all of these kinds of things. But we oftentimes don't get a chance to step back and see the bigger picture and see what's actually going on in other countries as well, because believe it or not, we're not the only ones suffering out there. We have folks in all the big four destination countries, UK, Canada, Australia, and the US, that are facing similar challenges. Obviously, very different types of legislation that's been proposed that is now limiting enrollments or the ability of international students to come to each country. So we see a lot of similar issues that are affecting other countries as well. So in some countries, even more, believe it or not, more damaging than what we experience here in the United States. So as we do each week, we'll take a look at the core topics we see developing in the news stories, and then focus our attention here on the Roundup on the kinds of questions that really are the ones relevant for you on campus that are trying to divine ways to address the key topics of the day and how they're impacting your campus, how you're impacting your strategies, how you're getting questions from senior leadership on campus about different international related topics, and what we plan to do and what we share with you each week through answering these three questions are our kind of best takes, deep next level thinking on where we might be able to address how we do what we do related to our own institutions and own groups that we might be a part of within our states. And that actually leads quite nicely into our first question. And the first question of the day is there a future for state consortia in the U.S. on the international education scene? For those not familiar, state consortia are basically institutions that gather for a common purpose within a state, typically, that have in international education circles over the last 25, 30 years have risen up organically through individual groups of universities in key states, seeing value in collective action together to help support what they're trying to do internationally as institutions and as states. And oftentimes I've been very fortunate to have been a part of the founding of a number of consortia, including one when I was on the institutional side with Destination Indiana in the early noughties through to 2008-9, where we basically decided to band together as a group of institutions representing public and private, big and small, all sorts of institutions, part of our consortium, to help elevate Indiana as a destination for international students to come to the U.S. We were very successful in our early days in attracting and developing a very strong relationship with Education USA, with our U.S. Senior Senator from Indiana, Richard Lugar, one of the great statesmen of the Senate, a dying breed. Obviously, he's since passed, but certainly one where we sorely lack in the Senate these days, a true statesman. And Richard Lugar was involved in helping us to become active on the national stage with hosting. He was chair of the Foreign Relations Committee. He hosted student visa hearings in 2005 as a result of our requests to address some of the post 9/11 visa issues that international students, particularly male Muslim students from around Muslim majority countries, challenges that they were having in the visa process. We banded together with Destination Indiana to do live video college fairs in 2005 for the first time with Education USA advising centers across the Middle East in a kind of a first of its kind approach back in 2005, doing live video chats with students and Education USA advisors and parents in multiple locations on one day across the region. We were able to host advisors on topical conversations, visit campus clusters around our state. So these are the kinds of things that we were successful in doing. We helped support state of Indiana resolution supporting international education back in the mid-noughties, and we were able to go to DC and present a framed copy of that to Senator Lugar, who had been instrumental in helping us. We'd hosted numerous Education USA advisors, over 150 over a 5-year period on our campuses and in Washington, D.C. So there was really strong relationships I was able to personally develop in creating that consortia. I had the pleasure of serving as chair for my last year at Ball State in Indiana before I moved to work with Education USA. And one of my roles at Education USA was to help other state consortia around the country with as they were starting up, attending their meetings, sharing what we'd done in Indiana, but also sharing how they could work as a group with Education USA for recruitment purposes, all of these kinds of things, and how Education USA could help facilitate that. We held sessions at Education USA forums in DC in the early teens, specifically for state consortia, had some roundtables and discussions on best practices. These are the kind of things that I had a real pleasure of working with over 20 consortia that were in the build-up startup phase, either attending their meetings or assisting them through this Education USA forum. And since that time, obviously the pandemic gave opportunities for these state consortia to do virtual events through other sources or other outlets. Through virtual fairs. I know I was at the time during the pandemic doing my own consulting business, as SMIE Consulting is, and worked in helping to launch Study Michigan. And at that time I helped launch their site, all their socials, and we held 2 virtual college fairs for that group that gave access to over 3,000 students over those 2 events for the member institutions. So there's a real need for state consortia, and oftentimes they form in times of challenging times, to be honest with you. Destination Indiana formed in the post 9/11 world. Study Michigan formed in during COVID. We are now in the state of Ohio, I'm proud to say. We are launching Study Ohio, a long sought after state organization. It's been tried a couple times previously, but never got off the ground. We've held a number of preparatory webinars coordinated by our friends in U.S. Commercial Service over the last year in 2025. And then this year we've had two webinars, one of them a kickoff webinar to the wider state audiences for those involved in international education. We worked with our State Department of Higher Education. We had a representative get involved in our first meeting in person last week in Ohio, down in Columbus. We had one of our state commercial service representatives attend that as well. And we're building bridges with other organizations. The OIC, Ohio International Consortium, is also an organization we reached out to help their members get connected with us on the exploratory steps we've taken. We've now held our first in-person meeting. The link I've posted in the chat is actually for a potential roadblock to some of our institutions, the public institutions that I'll talk about in a minute. But one of the things that we're able to do as a state, we now have critical mass of some of the key players, particularly the largest institution in the state, Ohio State University, is all in supporting our efforts to launch Study Ohio. They hosted our meeting last week, and there's a real momentum, I think, with folks on campus that I've gotten to know over the years that are in other international units on the campus, because it's a huge undertaking to do international ed at the Ohio State University. But we also have public and private universities across the state, from Cincinnati and Dayton to Columbus to Athens to the northeast of Ohio, University of Akron that I represent, Kent State University, Miami University, Bowling Green State University, University of Findlay, a number of other, Defiance University, a number of others, Ohio Dominican, Otterbein University, all becoming active parts of this consortium. And Xavier also was a part of our initial meetings. We're hoping that all of them can join in. We had about 14 institutions participating, either virtually or online, Kent State as well online, in our event last Monday. And we have a fairly ambitious plan in the next 3 months to roll out Study Ohio to the rest of our partners around the world. We each have institutional partners that we work with, but folks like Education USA, U.S. Commercial Service on the national level, to make them aware of various service providers that might be eager to partner with us in Ohio to help connect their services to our members and various other opportunities through sponsorship. So we're becoming really engaged and energized with the opportunities to make our state more of a focus of international students' attention. And as I mentioned earlier, these state consortia over the years have come out of a need for collaboration, a need for something new. Not that state consortium in Ohio is something new, or not that it's new in the wider landscape of international ed in the United States, but it's new for our state, and it's coming out of a need. A need, I think, in Indiana at the time, we were, I think, 13th as a destination for international students, despite having two very significant institutions with Purdue University and Indiana University Bloomington. Then we got IUPUI involved. All three of those major state institutions were part of it, along with some of the privates, the leading privates, Valpo and others, Earlham College, others, Vincennes, and others throughout the state became an active part of the organization. So in Ohio, we're doing that similarly as a result of the most recent year of debilitating government policies that have really impacted our ability to bring more international students to our campuses. We are now facing what some have called an existential crisis in our field and international education, given the constant assault, the impact of the visa interview changes last summer, the 1-month-long pause, and what that did to our fall enrollments, and the knock-on effect it's had reputationally on the United States, and our welcoming or lack of welcoming environment that our government is portraying for visitors, international students that come to the U.S. that are so valuable to our campuses, to our community, communities to future employers that are looking to harness the talent that we develop on our campuses. So our consortium is really multi-pronged. It's looking at a lot of different levels. Right now, we're exclusively post-secondary higher education institutions at the community college and college level, regionally accredited institutions that we're looking to promote through our consortium. We may expand to include high schools across the state that have international populations, potentially ESL programs, if any are still left standalone programs. Want to reach out to them as well. So there's many opportunities for us to really build a future for Study Ohio, and we'll be having, just got confirmation, talking to the Ohio State rep on the NAFSA Region 6 committee, good friend Frank Marandino, that indeed there is going to be a state drive-in this July somewhere in Columbus, and we'll be able to have a session at that event to kind of serve as our initial membership meeting drive for interested parties at an event that attracts institution representatives from most of NAFSA member organizations in the state. So really looking forward to what Study Ohio can bring. The link that I posted in the chat is from Republican gubernatorial candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, who has said publicly that Ohio has too many public universities, and that maybe we can cut costs to consolidate. That may impact, obviously, what some of our member institutions might be able to do. We are in part of, say, for example, Northeast Ohio that has 4 major public institutions. You've got, at the university level, you've got Cleveland State, you've got Youngstown State, you've got Kent State, and you've got the University of Akron, all within about 45 miles of each other. So these are this is a concern that maybe we have too many. Certainly we've seen, and we're actually, Akron is quoted in this article as having experienced a significant drop-off in the last decade in our student enrollment. We've had a couple of retrenchments in terms of faculty cuts, some major programs that we've cut, and we've gotten lean over the last few years, and now are beginning a rebound. At the time that last year we had a very strong fall growth, fall 25, and now we're trying to adjust to this coming demographic cliff that we're all dreading in one ways, what we're going to see this fall, because the out-of-state numbers are where we've had to focus, since our Ohio numbers are certainly down. Out-of-state and international is something that we have to go where the students are, and they have been outside the state in record numbers and in other countries. So we've been taking steps over the last year to explore what those options are as an institution, and Study Ohio is certainly allowing us to expand those opportunities and make our state universities and a lot of our privates great again. So that's our goal. Now, that's the first question of the day. We'll certainly talk more about state consortia in the weeks and months to come, but we'll certainly share with you our successes and learnings that we gather along this goal of creating a fully functional state consortia with can make a real impact. And one of those impacts is trying to elevate our state from our current position of 9 to at least 8 in the United States as a major destination. When we were in Indiana, we went from 13 to 10 over a 6-year period, and we're very proud of that success and attribute a lot of that to our success as a consortium in terms of getting the name out of the state of Indiana, doing tours overseas to working with our state economic development office to visit their centers in 4 major countries in East Asia. So all sorts of different activities that we did to help elevate the profile of Indiana. We're looking to do likewise for Ohio, exploring sister state relationships in different countries to work on expanding the reach in where there may be low-hanging fruit for our institutions. So, next question. Have we blown our opportunity with China? This is a tricky one. I certainly will say, and there's a report this week coming off a survey that the Chinese 2026 China Study Abroad White Paper, released by EIC Education, one of the providers in China, for one of the larger educational consultant businesses. And the survey is looking at the preferences of Chinese students and where they want to study. And guess what? We used to be number one for Chinese students back in the teens, late noughties, early teens. We were number one up until probably 2017, 18, 19. Then COVID hit and everything kind of went downhill. And for the last 6 years, we've seen substantial drop-offs in the number of Chinese students studying in the United States. We've seen China go from far and away the number one source country for students in the U.S. to number two, being replaced by India during the pandemic. And even though we're seeing drops in India the last couple of years, they still hold the lead. But Chinese numbers continue to dwindle. Why is that? Certainly the political situation from Trump 1.0 to 2.0 has not improved. Even during the Biden years, the numbers kept dropping. So it's not a Republican or Democratic thing. It's more of a nation-to-nation kind of thing. There has been some animosity. There has been issues that have bubbled to the surface, and certainly in international ed, where the China initiative during first Trump administration, it was not discontinued by the Biden administration, was still a part of the government's policy, is that there's a civil-military fusion in China, and that their institutions, higher ed institutions, are beholden to the Communist Party and the military of the Chinese government, and have intent to place students, researchers, scholars in U.S. institutions and think tanks to take technology and take it back to China. We've seen from the earliest days of social media, when obviously in the U.S. it was YouTube, Twitter, Facebook that were driving a lot of the growth in the early noughties. China developed basically knockoff versions of those three platforms and modeled them on very similar platforms. Their Youku was their YouTube. Then they developed a much more robust platform, WeChat, that became kind of an all-in-one social media. But there was a Facebook version that existed in China. There was a Twitter. Twitter was kind of a WeChat version, and then WeChat kind of grew and expanded and kind of ate all the others up. There's a Douyin, which is our TikTok, the TikTok version that we have in the U.S. now. Douyin is the mothership company. So there's always been that going on the tech side, and certainly military and other national secrets that are industries that are considered vital to national security. They've been targeted by the Chinese over the years to potentially get important information out and bring it back to China. So that has been a part of government policy since Trump 1.0 with the China initiative launch. Even though it's not official now, there's still been animosity. We're hoping in the next few months Trump is going to China. Hopefully that will be. He wouldn't be going to China if there wasn't a chance of a more robust deal to be had. That's what Trump exists for, is making a deal. And then President Xi is planned to come to the U.S. sometime this summer. So the opportunity exists for the U.S. to claw back some of what we've lost, and we've lost a lot with China over the years. To this point, this study abroad white paper that EIC released recently now shows the U.S. is a distant fourth in priority for where Chinese students want to study. First, with 56%, is UK. Second, Hong Kong with 40%. And third, Australia with 37%. And in 2025, which this is the survey year that is covered, share of students favoring the U.S. dropped from 30.9% to 21.2%. So massive drop off that we were already in, I think, third place at that point. Now we've dropped to fourth, distant fourth. So there's some real challenges in terms of public perception in China right now related to the U.S., but is that permanent? No. The survey data that was collected included about 1,500 prospective students that the agency used to form the basis of their survey. So we'll see what that looks like moving forward. We were third. Other groups in China have done similar surveys. We saw New Oriental do a survey that reported the U.S. had slipped to third place. And Open Doors shows that numbers are continuing to decline overall. So we'll see what happens with China in the future, but certainly right now we are not at the top of the list. Certainly we're above Canada, so I guess we got that going for us. But in terms for the United States and China, there is certainly an uphill road to climb, and I think with the right changes or right events that might take place in the next 3 to 4 months, with Trump going to China, with President Xi coming here, we may see some thawing and improving of relations, and as a result, when those relationships improve, perhaps it will follow that Chinese students will again warm to studying in the U.S. So we'll see what happens. Certainly we are one of our main recruitment partners, our main recruitment partner internationally in Unity Global, has recently set up shop in China and has folks on the ground there developing our network of potential pipelines for student applicants to our institution at the University of Akron. So we're really excited about what that might mean for us. But it means being on the ground there again. It means identifying what are the real possibilities for us partnership-wise, with some T&E opportunities to enroll students through programs that are delivered entirely there, or 3+1 models. We've had strong 3+2 programs with the Chinese universities for one of our top programs, Polymer Science, for students coming after their third year in China, coming to finish their bachelor's degree in year 4, that would transfer back to their home university and then begin their first year of a master's program, and then complete their master's in the second year with us in polymer science. So that's that's the kind of model we have had in China. We're looking to expand that, but we have to deal with the implications of SB 1 that was passed in the state of Ohio last year that limits what institutions can do in China. It doesn't prevent them. It just means that partnerships have to be reviewed and approved by the Chancellor's Office for the state of Ohio system. So we have a couple more hoops to jump through. We have our own institutional house we have to get in order, and we're very close to having that so that we can then resume discussions with folks in China. So hopefully we'll see a brightening of our relationships with China, at least for our institution, and hopefully with the country as a whole. So we'll see what breaks out in the next few weeks. Now, on to our final question of the day. And will Australian international education still thrive with the brakes on? And this is, as I mentioned earlier, we're not the only Big Four country that's really dealing with the challenges of government policy changes that are impacting what we're able to do in terms of recruitment. And we've seen over the last 2 years, we've seen the Australian government implement new English language requirements, raising the level of IELTS or TOEFL. We've seen an increase in the amount of funds that students have to show to qualify for student visa. We've seen a doubling of the student visa application fee. We've also seen a doubling of the application for post-study work opportunity for international students. We've seen institutions being told, particularly elite institutions like the Group of 8 in Australia, that they are capped. They will not be able to get more than half of their total students from international sources. They've also put limits on if Australian institutions have been very active in terms of T&E in other countries for a number of years, and if now the government is saying, hey, if you have the ability, international student in your home country, to do an Australian degree program where you are, you can't come to Australia to actually do your studies here. They have made that very clear, and so institutions like RMIT that have campuses in Vietnam and other countries in Asia, those students will not be able to come to Australia to do that same degree, or any of students in Vietnam who have the ability to come to want to come to RMIT in Australia to do a certain degree. If that degree is offered at the Vietnam campus, they won't be granted a visa, even if they're admitted and have funding and all of that, because they can do that same program in Vietnam. So there have been many hurdles that have been put up to block international students, or limit or reduce to control the number of international students that are considering Australia as a destination. And we'll see how they deal with all of these changes, because international students, when they continually see government putting up roadblocks and increasing fees and new requirements, that we'll now see some really very challenging environment that they're facing to get there. Is there's some a value proposition that students have to weigh. Is it still worth the time and effort and cost of getting there to do a degree when other countries might be less restrictive and less expensive, but may not have the best quality? So there's a really clear indications that students are not only keeping their options open. Certainly my recent trip to Vietnam, India, and then a conference in France really reinforced to me what I've seen on the ground, is that hey, students are applying to multiple countries now, not just multiple institutions within the same country, as in your neighbor in the United States, they might also be applying to, but they're applying to multiple countries. Why? They want to keep their options open because the visa situation is unclear, not just for the US, but for multiple other countries now. Canada has obviously restricted significantly. The UK has, certainly for graduate programs, has become more restrictive. There's new international student fees that are being levied in the UK to help offset the shortfalls in budget that the institutions have on the domestic front. So all sorts of opportunities exist for the institutions that are bold and creative in ways that they can attract those students to their programs, whether through T&E. Certainly a lot of UK schools are kind of not giving up the ghost of trying to enroll more new internationals to their campuses more each year, but they've been told by the government, hey, your focus needs to be on T&E. You need to have, which they're already great at, frankly, in the UK in terms of numbers. Their numbers are, the last couple of years, they've been graduating each year more students with UK degrees that they earned outside of the UK than international students that came and studied in the UK. So UK is certainly pushing, recentering a lot of their efforts to expand on the T&E front, not on the direct recruitment front. So the opportunities are there for those institutions that are creative and willing to explore outside the lines. And when you're aware of all these other opportunities and what's happening in other countries with their own governments' policies, you really see students keeping options open and making sure that they're applying. They have a number of opportunities and options when all said and done before they have to decide on one place that they wish to go. So it's up to the individual institutions to show value, to show that ROI, to show the outcomes that you can deliver. And the schools that can do that best are the ones that are going to be able to turn that corner and really see increases in the future, government visa policy willing. So that's all we have for you this week on the Roundup. Thanks for joining us, and we're looking forward to chatting with you again next week. And then middle of April, we'll be off to Brazil for about 10 days to attend the FOBI conference in Florianopolis. Looking forward to connecting with our partners down there, as well as some recruitment in Sao Paulo. So until next time, we'll talk to you then. Cheers.